As we know, language is a dynamic entity. It keeps on changing within a society. So variation is a word which is so much associated with the life of a language within a society. In this section, we'll try to look into various socio-cultural factors which contribute to the making and changing of a language within a society. In this regard, we need the introduction of certain terms. For example, variety. Variety is a neutral term which is used for various forms or varieties of a language within a society. It can refer to any dialect, sociolect, style, or register. It is not restricted to a certain dialect, but it could refer to any variation within a language, or it can be used for various languages as well. And it is very useful to avoid a kind of prejudging that a certain language is a language or dialect. So in such cases where you do not have clear distinction between the status of a language or a dialect, you could use the term variety. Or you could say that this is a different variety. Therefore, a variety can be greater, can be larger than a language, or could be less than a dialect. Hudson says that a variety may be seen as a set of linguistic items with similar social distribution. It's quite a wider definition of variety, and we could assume, if we follow this definition, that in a multilingual society, as many languages a speaker speak, they could be considered the same variety, because all the linguistic items he utilizes from various languages, they are used for the similar social distribution. So therefore, they could be called a variety. There are various varieties of language. I will just mention two popular ones, which are Afstand and Osba. Afstand is a variety of language which takes its different status of a language because of its linguistic features, because it is different from another language linguistically to the extent that it may be considered as a different language. For example, Urdu and English are two different languages. They're linguistically so different that we could easily recognize that they are different languages. In contrast, ASPO languages are those which get the status of a different language not because of their different linguistic recognition, but because of the political reasons or political status of their speakers. Sometimes it happens that people get independence and they change the name of the language they used to speak and attach it with their new national identity. We could see that in case of Norwegian and Swedish. If you listen to these languages, they look similar, but they are known as different languages for political reasons. Dialect is a language variety which is spoken by people in a certain region or geographical area of speakers of a language, and it is usually demarcated by the region, and it has a separate entity based on various linguistic elements. They could be phonological, morphological, and syntactical. A dialect is different from another dialect in all these spheres. Otherwise, we may find it very hard to call it a different dialect. And it is usually associated with a particular geographical area. We can recognize it or associate with a certain geographical area. As we could see in our own area, we can see the Punjabi which is spoken in Lahore is quite different from the Punjabi which is spoken in Sialkot, let's say, or even in neighboring Sheikhupura. So we could say that these are different dialects of Punjabi language. There could be various types of dialects. The first one I would like to introduce is idiolect. Idiolect is the dialect of an individual. Every individual's language differs from another individual, and the individual variation we bring in a language may be called an idiolect. Sociolect is a variety of language which takes its ground or its backdrop from the social background of its speakers, because there are various social factors which may contribute to various dialects. Social class may be one factor, or urban or rural division may be another factor, or there could be multiple factors. We'll talk about them later. These contribute to various varieties of a language. So we call such variations as sociolect. In this regard, we could see the example that in Indian society, caste in their society, that determines how the speakers of a certain language belonging to a certain caste would use that language. So there are various uses of the same language based on the division within the society in relation to their caste. So we all know that caste system in India is very deep, is still very deep in some areas of the India. If you just look at the picture in front of you, I will just try to present some examples of dialectical variation. If we consider British received pronunciation and American English as various dialects, we could see, or we could trace variations in these dialects in all levels of a language. For example, phonological level, you could see the word, the short of cannot. We pronounce it can't in American English or can't in British English. So there are different pronunciations of these words. At morphological level, we have differences. For example, in received pronunciation or English, we would use I have got, and in American, we would say I have gotten. Similar, there are lexical variations for the same items as well. For example, lift and flat may be replaced in American English with the words elevator and apartment. Similarly, on syntactic level, you could see the consonant R, and in American English, we could usually use a singular verb with this, the consonant is. I shall go and I will go. You could see that on your screen. These are some examples of these dialectical variations. As I mentioned earlier, there are multiple factors which contribute to variation or dialectical variation within a society, and it's very difficult to discuss them in a short span of time. But you can have a look at the list in front of you, and you could see its social situation in which we are that contribute to our making, our job, our profession, our socioeconomic background. They all contribute to it. Gender is another factor, because we all know there is a variation between what men speak and what women speak. So gender is another social factor which may contribute to different dialects. Ethnicity, age, we all know there is a difference between the language of young people and the older people, and they all contribute to dialectical variations. These are only few factors. The list could be longer, but to sum up, we could say that there are multiple factors within a society which can contribute to the making and the changing or the variation within the languages spoken in that society.